Do you remember that job that I got or you got through that connection?
Yeah,
That door opened for you.
yeah, yeah. He wants to make it sound so cocky.
Welcome to Clearing the Path with Will, the podcast where we dive into real stories behind entrepreneurs, where we started, the challenges we faced, and the lessons we've learned. Taking a deeper look into the journey, talking with other entrepreneurs who are out here making it happen. Having everything set in place was my biggest stepping stone.
Meeting one person can lead to many other things, Really, don't be afraid to walk up and shake one person's hand.
Remember that job that you did at Oxford Prep High School and the networking that was involved and how that happened?
I do. I remember, from you maintained and built a relationship with a customer, and then you introduced me to him, and I bidded on a job for Oxford Prep School. We got the job, and we spent a little while out there and did quite a bit of work for that customer. And that really comes to show, meeting one person can lead to many other things, Really, don't be afraid to walk up and shake one person's hand.
And getting clients is the main part of business.
Right, right.
And I've about wrecked 3 or 4 people trying to stop them and talk to them in a parking lot.
Right, right. That's what it takes.
Or pulling into a job site and jumping out and handing the superintendent your cards, telling them who you are,
Right.
and how you can get involved.
And that goes back to the part of you've got to be eager and you've got to want it. And that shows your drive. And, a lot of these contractors and superintendents, I want to say, realize that you've got the drive and the motivation and you want it.
Just yesterday, me and you were involved in the chamber, and we wanted to set a meeting up with the leader of the chamber and see how me and you can get more involved in the community and the right people sees us. I mean, I enjoy doing it either way.
Right,
if we get work from it or not, helping other people out. But usually when you get involved in the community, it opens the doors up.
I can, think of a couple of events we've done with the community, such as when that hurricane hit, we helped them pack trailers.
Yeah.
And we bought a bunch of supplies and sent it up to Western North Carolina in their tractor trailer they had going that way.
Speaking of that, you've still got
Yeah, I do. I have.
Western North Carolina.
I've got crews currently in Western North Carolina working on storm cleanup, and that that aspect leads to you've got to have the right people to get the job done.
Tried to go to Western North Carolina, and I was talking to these contractors that didn't even know what they had going on themselves. They were sketchy. And I picked up and went with, 6 guys,
Yeah.
4 machines, sat up there for 3 days. And I mean, I was just going to take the machines off and help. And
Yeah,
every time we got to a fire department, the chief or whoever was there, they'd say, "We don't need help here."
Right, right.
And it was a couple days of that, of saying, "What the heck am I doing here? I got work at home, and I wanted to help out and try and, maybe make some money, but help out's the main thing." And I packed up and rolled home. We had campers and everything, and it was a learning lesson to have your ducks in a row before you make the jump.
And that aspect ties back to networking and who you know, and you might have people, you're going to run into people all the time that are going to stand you up.
Yeah.
They're going to say they've got all this work for you, that they'll never call you back. I mean, I can name 5 people right now in my phone that have called me begging me to come do work for them. I call them back and they won't answer the phone.
Yeah.
And that's the truth of business, and that's just what you've got to understand. And I was in Western North Carolina, before you were, when the storm initially hit. I was down there the night the storm hit, and we started doing work. And I remember, when you were being misled by other people, and it got to a point where I got in with the right people, and it hurt you because you were being misled by the wrong people. And I think a lot of people need to understand, everybody might seem like the right people, but they're not always the right people. You've got to take the good things that you've built with those customers and use them to an advantage. And you've always got to think about, you want customers that are, one, going to pay you on time, and one, that are going to respect you in the same way you respect them. You don't want customers that don't do that. You don't want to be waiting 120 days to get a check for work you did 120 days ago. I mean, that's unrealistic. And also, you want somebody that's going to pick up the phone and, you have a problem like we were talking about bailiwick. One of their foremen, helped you through that whole job. If that's what it takes, we might be young, we might be trying to learn, but it's the thing of they took the time out of their day to show us and help us learn means they really want something for us and they see a lot of potential. And you can say, that was networking when we were out there building relationships with that foreman, which then led to bigger, better things within that company.
My general manager, my head man, the guy who heck teaches me every day what's going on if I don't know something, and he's lost more knowledge about grading, dirt work, construction than I'll ever know. And it helps me figure out what I'm good at and where I need to stay in my business. And putting him in charge was the right thing to do. And he showed me his hiring process. Before I even set an interview up, I'm doing interviews on Zoom meetings. Right. And then I'll pick and line up times for everybody to come in the same day. And me and James are doing the interviews. And my office admin, Sherry, we're sitting there. And after they walk out, we talk, we write down what we like about them, and then we go to the next interview.
I think, everybody's got to start somewhere. Just like me and you started somewhere. If we would have started behind a cashier in a grocery store, we want to go somewhere. But at the same time, you've got to have people that actually know what they're doing on sites. We have commercial sites where we have people like OSHA and other, big companies out there, and we can't have somebody that doesn't know what they're doing, and that would be claimed as unsafe on our job sites.
Working buddies and family, because that's how I started too. Yeah, both of us did. Yeah, and it caused as we grew, they wanted more and they took advantage of you. Yeah, and you had to get to a point. If it wasn't for James, I'd probably still be at the point where I'm like, how am I gonna end things with these people?
Right, right. And I feel like, that all leads to you've got to have the proper management in place to take care of a problem or a situation at any given time, and I feel like with you having James in that situation, you had the proper management in place to take care of the situation, and the situation was handled. And, look at where you're at now compared to back then.
Even putting the processes in place early, having your safety checks every day, having your software, your billing, your all of that all in one app or however you want to do it. Putting all those processes in place early, like right now with me having 9 or 10 guys, I might still be able to have the same processes when I have 30 guys. Hiring an office admin, I mean, that took me to the next level.
Right. I felt like, that's part of the things you've got to step out on the ledge and, make the commitment of this is what I want to do with my company and this is where I want to grow my company. So you've got to have, I guess a mindset of, or a business plan in the back of your head of this is what I want to be and this is where I want to be at. Yeah. So I guess you were ready to, be there and you hired the proper management you needed, and everything's rolling smooth now, and you're still in the hiring process of hiring more help. It's nonstop. You're always hiring help, and that's always a good thing because that means you're doing something right.
James, these people, these old schoolers that are in this line of work, they know everybody. They know they can make a phone call and say to an old crew that they used to have or whatnot, and a good crew too. And you hire the whole crew. Right. And right. Their crew leader, their foreman, you put them in charge of who's on their crew.
Yep. Yep. That in that sense, that's always good when you're subcontracting work out. So if you got on with a prime contract and you were subbing a lot of work out, I think that would be a really good spot. You got to be careful management wise. Be careful who you hire management wise versus who you hire, you know, operator and laborer wise. Just because a lot of people are gonna make themselves look a lot better than they are.
And it's been a buddy of mine that wrecked a truck or flipped a skid steer into a creek. Yeah. And I'm just sitting there scratching my head out. Yeah. And then, like I said, having the right management, a good, if you want to call him a project manager, general manager, or operational manager, whatever you want to call him, James, he fired him. Yeah. I mean, I had a lot of say in there, but And don't try and step on, if you put somebody in a position, from what I've learned, is let them do their job, but don't micromanage them. Right. If they see an issue and you know that, like James, he is all about Five County construction.
You need that so you have the proper management in place to work on the company rather than work in the company. And I think that plays a big role in growing a business, in meeting new people, networking, stuff like that. Because I would love to. I mean, back in the day, I was the one on the lawnmower. You were the one in the skid steer. I would love to get back to that. I mean, it was fun, but at the same time, I was only growing my business with so much.
You can make a good living, however you want to put it, running the sawmill yourself, doing all of it. But that's what me, I want more. Right. I want. I mean, like my business advisor, George says. He says, "You want to take over the world, don't you?" Yes, sir. I'm ready.
And I think, that's another thing we need to hit on is what it costs, the costs that people don't see, such as just the equipment to make it precise, costs that much money. And that's not what everybody else sees
it's not all shiny things.
Right. It's not all shiny things. You've got a lot of money, a lot of commitments, a lot of dedication poured into it. And you've got to, make a name for yourself.
That this individual told me, he said, "I'm going to introduce you to my project managers, and they're going to be the ones to choose to pick you to do the work.
Right.
I'm not. I'm going to make the introduction. I'm going to open the door for you. It's up to you to follow through with the lead."
Right.
And he said, "Don't go in there and tell them you got 30 pieces of equipment, because you don't. Don't tell them you got 30 guys, because you don't. Tell them the truth and what you can handle, and start from there."
Yep. And that's a big part of business is honesty, being transparent with your clients and being honest with your clients. Because what happens when you tell them you've got 30 guys and they call, on a Friday evening and say,
"I need you to clear 100 acres.
Yeah, next week. And if it's not done by next week, I'll find somebody else. You're sitting there, how do I get that done?
I did it. I mean, weekends, whatever I had to do, I pulled through.
Right. And it's just like we did a job together recently in North Raleigh beside Crabtree Mall. Yeah. That was a big hit for both of us, and that was a big relationship builder.
If you got a question, say you're bidding a job, call them up.
Right.
Say, "Look, I want to sit down with you and go over this.
Right.
I need help."
Right. And I feel like a lot of people, are at the point where I feel scared. I don't want to ask that question, but at the same time,
if you build a good enough relationship,
they're not gonna care. I feel like they'd be happier that you called them and asked them for help rather than not calling them, giving them some absurd proposal.
Me and him were sitting there, on a piece of notebook paper 15 minutes before the bid was due, and I called the contractor. I was like, "Man, I'm screwed." He's like, "Just send it in, even if we don't get it," because there was no building structural there. They were doing that for me.
Right.
They were gonna have me be able to do my biggest job ever with them, as them being the contractor, but they don't have nothing to do with it. They just pay a foreman to sit out there and manage it. But I ended up missing $150,000 worth of material, and he called me up. He said, "I'll you can come to my office and we can meet and look at what you missed, and or even on the weekend." He said he'd help me.
What if that contractor would have said, "Hey, you won the job," and didn't tell you about that, $120,000 in materials?
Because I was so off. I mean, I was embarrassed.
Right.
Yeah, but I submitted my bid by taking a picture of my notebook paper.
Hey, and I mean,
I didn't have a packet proposal, none of that.
and you've got to start somewhere. I started. I was doing work off of a text message. Now I try not to do any work unless it's off of a contract. Yep. I want a signed contract for any work we do. It's stuff that I've learned throughout the years is not having a contract will get you burned. I mean, even if it's for the littlest amount of money, the people still owe you money and you're still doing work for that individual. We were in high school. We weren't wearing hard hats, safety vests, safety glasses, ear protection, steel toe boots, none of that until we really got out into the workforce. And, it's more than hopes and joys that comes along with it. And I think that's the biggest thing is just letting people realize it's more than what they can see. You know, people sit here and scroll through Instagram and TikTok all day and see these videos, but do they really know what's involved behind the
Yeah.
scenes through the whole process?
So take from that, no matter what happens in your line of work, there's going to be problems, and you just have to be there to help your team, get with your team and solve your problems. I mean, rather it's your guys are fist fighting on a job site and your client's going to kick you off the job. How are you going to handle that? How are you going to resolve it with the client? Rather it's a machine's broke down. Are you going to rent a machine to get the job done? Because I am. I'm going to make sure the job gets done correctly, and we're going to move on to the next site.